Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Homespun Yak. And Kyle has a message for us. What's that message, Kyle?
Count the vote.
Count the
That's
vote.
the message. The
Blue
message is blue. Say it with me.
lives.
Blue
Blue
lives
lives matter.
matter.
Yeah. They matter all the time, except for a
Every
particular period of time on Wednesday, where things just didn't seem to matter as much. Which is an interesting turn of events. Kyle, we have so much to discuss. We have a lot to talk about. Yeah, so I mean, I totally want to go into what happened on Wednesday because actually you were texting me while I was driving, and I was texting back while I was driving.
While you were driving, I also reported that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm supposed to report for jail later tonight.
Good. Good.
So I'll be sure to do that. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the Joe Rogan podcast, Dr. Mark Gordon, and then I also want to discuss the playoffs, which were absolutely insane because we were talking about that over text message as well.
Definitely
but
insane.
The first thing, I mean, Wednesday, what the fuck
What
happened? That was insane.
I know. And I had no idea until about 30 minutes, maybe 15 minutes before I texted you that, because I had just been working. It was like a very busy day, and I was just immersed in the computer and doing other things. And because I don't have social media, I wasn't on that, which it would have been the first thing I probably would have seen, as soon as it started earlier in the day. And Will Haynes called me like randomly just during the day, and he's like, "Are you watching what's going on?" And I was like, "I don't have a clue. What are you talking about?" And then I did a little further investigation and found that the Capitol building had been stormed by, I guess it looked like, I don't know how many people, but it was maybe carryover from, was it a rally that Trump held that morning, or like a speech he gave where he was saying basically we have to take it back. It wasn't, and I guess that inspired a big chunk of that audience to, in fact, act on that.
Yeah.
So it was just pretty crazy watching it all unfold, even though I got to it like as it was ending. And you were driving through DC at the time, and you had no idea.
No, I was about, when you texted me, I was about an hour away from DC. Actually, my girlfriend had called me and told me, "Hey, try to avoid DC if possible." I was like, "Babe, it ain't nothing, like no big deal. I'm just gonna swing on by the Capitol, just see what's up,
hang out with my people,
hang out with my people." Right.
Because that's the first thought that I had when I saw what was kind of unfolding and people storming the building, just chaos, and waving, sort of the Trump banner. My first thought was, where's Nick in that crowd?
Yeah.
That's why I reached out to you first. Like, man, what's going on in there? Did you get any footage? Like, are you okay?
Yeah. Did you?
You were okay.
Yeah. Did you take down Nancy Pelosi?
Did you get her yet?
Yeah.
Where is she? Did you hang Mike Pence?
Yeah.
What's going on?
No, I didn't do any of that. But it was stunning when I didn't know anything except for what you told me over text message, and then over what my girlfriend had mentioned just a little bit of over the phone. So I didn't really get updated till kind of later that night and over the coming days, and I'm still kind of updating myself on what all happened. But it's real insanity. I mean, that's pretty stunning what happened. Wednesday. Yeah, so Trump has this rally, I think, in the morning, and then like thousands of people went down the street. I don't know if like thousands entered the Capitol, but certainly a lot of people entered the Capitol. As a matter of fact, I've got a picture of what that ended up looking like.
The surge.
The surge kind of going up the Capitol steps. And then I did watch some footage of reporters that were inside the Capitol building, and there were apparently four police officers on the other side of these like really thick doors that were reinforced doors and with a small window. And the reporters are like taking video from a balcony above on the inside of the Capitol building, and they're just recording, looking down, and the four police officers just like end up just leaving because I mean you got hundreds of people outside,
Yeah.
and they're like smashing through the window, and they just kept smashing at the door. And this door, I mean, you can tell it's pretty heavy. It's not like some light,
Yeah.
piece of crap door. But they just like continuously just heaving their bodies up against it until eventually it starts to creak and then starts to fall apart. And apparently one security, not an actual police officer, but a security officer that's just part of the Capitol, also does like tours and stuff like that, threw his body up against the door to try like keep it from caving in. And eventually they just like started like streaming in, and they finally broke the door completely open. And then obviously chaos ensued, and then the House of Representatives and all that stuff, the area where they usually do their business was infiltrated by a bunch of rioters, goons, thugs,
Yes.
vigilantes. Yeah, so it's insane. And then I don't know if you saw the video of that, what's his name, Goodman or something like that, the officer that 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 essentially got the attention of the crowd. And because they were looking for Mike Pence, and they were looking for Nancy Pelosi and looking for other representatives and
Yeah.
whatnot. And Mike Pence apparently was not in safety yet. Like he was still being evacuated. And nobody knew that except for this
Right.
police officer. And so this police, it's just one officer just like running away from this like large group of like 100 people. And he's just like twisting them down all these like hallways and stuff. And there's a particular hallway that they point out that say if they had gone down that hallway, they would have found Mike Pence. And he knew that apparently, and tried to like pull them away, and successfully did so. So you can imagine, I mean, you had other police officers that were getting beaten by this crowd, like literally beaten. And then of course one police officer ended up dying. So it's stunning, like the like what all happened there. Obviously, you had a small contingency of police officers that were at the front of the building. Then those, maybe I don't know how many it was exactly, but let's say it was like 20 officers, and then maybe that's against like hundreds of rioters. And then they push their way through. The police officers end up running up the steps to the very front of that door that I was talking about, and then I mean they're just like being squeezed in, so they just leave. I mean they just like go out both sides and just leave, and then the riders just have access to the door, so they're just like hitting it and trying to make it buckle, and eventually they do, and they get in, and then I mean it's just like it's so many people, and you only have so many officers, and it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean that whole thing was just insane. And on top of that, I just saw a report today that there are now threats across all 50 state capitals. The FBI released that there's a group or a series of different groups that are actually organizing to march on all these different capitals in the actual state capitals, as well as, again, march against the D.C. Capitol, I believe on the 16th of January, but also they're talking about on Inauguration Day as well. So there's I mean, I don't know if it's over. It doesn't seem like it is. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, could have some vigilantes for sure going out there for the next couple days, months, who knows. But yeah, just when you look at the situation, it's just like I think you're more shocked by how it could have happened, maybe not necessarily by the fact. I mean, you're definitely shocked that it happened in general,
Yeah.
but I wasn't really that like surprised by it. Like I wasn't like blown away. Like not saying it's not a big deal because it's one of the biggest deals, but the fact that people would go to such extremes based on what lies that he's been spinning. I mean, there's no secret that people will blindly follow him whatever chance they get. And this is like the most desperation zone that sort of fan base has been in yet, because that was the day that they had to count, the electoral votes to, signify it's finalized that Joe Biden wins. And their attempt to their last shot at stopping it, they actually did something and like physically stormed the building. And like, yeah, it's shocking, but it doesn't surprise me too much that they would actually try to do it. It's just shocking that they were able to get so far in so easily, so quickly.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, like, I don't know, you wonder why, knowing that there was going to be a big rally and a big mass of his supporters, and no matter what it is in general, if there's a big protest going on, you want to have a lot of police there just in case. I mean, a lot of times stuff doesn't go down, but I just wonder why that happened, why there was not enough police there. I mean, I don't know if that's like a conspiracy thing or not, but
Well, my understanding is that Trump
inside,
just was really slow at calling in the National Guard. He was the one that was in charge of calling in the National Guard, and he just took his sweet time doing
yeah,
it. I don't know if they even ever showed up. Maybe I don't remember if they did or not.
yeah,
There's been all kinds of reports on all kinds of different things.
yeah. We'll never know like the truth probably, but um,
But he is under investigation by by I don't know if it's the Justice Department or the FBI or whatever, but Trump is under an
oh yeah,
investigation currently. So how crazy is that? Your president is under investigation. And I don't know if he can pardon himself or not, pre-pardon
yeah. I
himself.
don't know. I
Uh,
don't know because
that
by the
seems like an
time,
abuse of power.
oh, definitely. And I mean, articles of impeachment will likely go ahead as well if Mike Pence doesn't invoke the 25th Amendment, which,
Which he's actually considering. Like that tells you how.
yeah, I know.
If this doesn't go through, I wonder. I'm sure Trump will pick Pence again for his VP.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was just crazy because, the day or maybe a day before Trump got banned on Twitter, which was another huge thing of all this.
Yeah,
He called out Mike Pence twice on Twitter, just like, wow, you're just gonna put the blame on him now,
yeah, yeah,
like for doing that. And then like, why the hell wouldn't you at that point be like, all right, it's over. Like this is just we gotta call it in. We gotta call the 25th Amendment, or I don't know. I mean, if I was Mike Pence, it would just be like, really, dude? Like I stuck with you like this long, and you're gonna like do me like this and put all the blame and like make people try to come and hang me? Like they built like a gallows outside, and they're
I
gonna
saw.
like go
Yeah,
and get me.
yeah, that
Fucking
was.
insane.
Yeah, that's insane. That's really crazy.
And then I don't know. So it's just like, yeah, it's a shame that it took, well, that it's all happening, within a week or a week or so of Biden getting sworn in and the transition of power and all that stuff. It just sucks that, I don't know. I just feel like Twitter should have banned him so long ago. I mean, the damage that he's done on Twitter alone will be long lasting, because that's his major platform where he can
Yeah,
get anything he wants at any time of the day, and every minute is something new, and you can't even keep track of it, and that's the whole point. And he's just brainwashed so many people to become radicalized by his agenda, and you saw like the final push of what that can be.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully it's the final push, but it's just like, man, it's actually real. It's definitely real.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah, it
mean,
is.
Sam Harris, I saw him say something that about it, and he said it looked like a YouTube comment stream come to life.
That's pretty apt. That's pretty apt.
uh, but
There's
and it just sucks for the country as a whole. It sucks for democracy as a whole. I mean, it's like everybody else is watching, and Russia, China, all these other countries are like, see, I mean, this is what happens when you get freedom of the press and you get freedom of speech and all that. People can go nuts, and like democracy, they can't even control their own people, and people are breaking in. It's like a coup, and I don't know. It just shows pure vulnerability and even heightens the division in our nation that's
hmm,
represented to the rest of the world. And I really don't think Joe Biden's going to fix it like somebody else might be able to. I think obviously it's better to have Joe Biden in office as soon as possible, but I just wonder if he really can comprehend and grasp the enormity of the situation and the potential effect that it will have in the future. Because I think he just sees it in a very narrow view based on what he said
yeah.
um, after it. But hopefully I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll certainly see. Um, with with Trump being banned from Twitter, I guess the idea there is that he won't be able to incite more riots
Mm.
going forward. But unfortunately, I mean that might end up happening regardless. Like I if I were Biden, I would genuinely be a little bit afraid on inauguration day. Like I would.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there was a guy with. I mean, this was according to MSNBC, so who knows? Like I don't trust media very much. Like,
Yeah.
when they characterize things as like there was a man parked with bombs in his truck. Like in my head, I'm thinking like, what are
Super
you
vague.
labeling
A
bombs?
bomb.
Like stuff
Yeah.
like that. But let's just assuming that's the case, even if it's if it's like Molotov cocktails or whatever it is. Like I mean, it's
Hmm.
probably something that's got nefarious reasoning. So. Uh, like think of that situation. This guy was at the Trump rally and had, let's say, quote unquote bombs in his truck, and he may very well have had actual bombs. I'm not trying to dismiss that, but um, imagine inauguration day, like somebody with just like a rifle or something like that, like trying to. I mean, I'm sure they're going to have this place super locked down, but also think. I mean, people are going to show up no matter what. Like people. I imagine I don't. As far as I know, they're not actually doing like the full inauguration as they had planned. I'm not sure. I haven't looked that up. But if they're doing
Probably
any
not.
sort of ceremony, I'm sure a lot of people are going to show up,
Yeah.
regardless of COVID or not. So just because it's you could technically be outside and whatnot. So I would not at all be surprised if things really went down. Maybe not necessarily against Biden, but against people that go out in support of Biden. And then you have a bunch of Trumpers that
Hmm.
end up showing up and trying to bully the situation, and fights end up breaking out. Yeah. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, a really scary video that I saw was the rioters trying to break through kind of a glass door, a glass slash wood door that was led down a hallway, and then you see this like this security officer with a gun, some sort of guy from some detail with a gun, and you can just see the gun in the video. He's on the other side, and he's just like holding it there, and like everybody on the other side that's trying to break in like acknowledges. They're like, oh, look, a gun. Oh no, and then they just like keep breaking in, and then he just shoots one of them, just like point
Yeah.
blank, just like that. And the person just drops and like everybody like backs away. It's like, I, wait, you see a gun and your thought process is let me continue
And
this
we
thing.
still do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
That guy
stunning.
behind there just scared for his life,
It's
like
one
has
dude,
no idea. Yeah, has
one
no
guy.
idea what to do. Did not
Exactly.
expect this. Like, obviously, no one should have died at all, but
No.
you storm the Capitol building, like, I don't know what you expect is going to happen. Like, and there's potential threats on other people's lives. Like, we don't know. I can't know if you're like somebody who's, you know, just being peaceful, just being an idiot and like just being a troll, or somebody who's legitimately looking to do harm to Nancy Pelosi or whoever it is, any person in there.
Yeah. And if you're
And
saying, if you have a whole crowd saying hang Mike Pence and stuff like that,
right,
what's the
right.
security
You've
supposed to do?
actually broken through.
We're gonna
And
see if this might be true. Mike, you want to go out there, talk to the folks, calm them
yeah,
down a little bit? No,
yeah,
you're gonna start shooting.
yeah. That was a crazy video.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just a sad situation in general, but it's just like, yeah, you can't do that. You can get shot if you do that. Like, it just is what it is. You are getting shot.
yeah,
Like, probably. Like, not saying that anybody deserved to die who went in there, but it's just like, this is what could happen. If you storm a federal building, you could get shot. That's probably something you should just know. But, you know,
yeah. Those
just
security officers aren't there for decoration. I mean, they
no,
do have a
no.
job that they actually have.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you got to think. I mean, this kind of puts the Republicans in a weird position because on one hand, um, Republicans are obviously always going to want to toe party lines, just like Democrats are going to want to toe party lines and be like, well, this is going to look bad in history if another if a Republican president gets impeached, and especially a second time, um, and if we kick him out and all that stuff, and that's. But ultimately, like they either can try to maintain this aura of Republicans are classy and we don't get impeached and we're the greatest party and all that, or you can impeach this guy and then nullify him from running again, and then you can have a different Republican end up running in the future. Which, I mean, that's something that they have to weigh. And of course, like, how do you defend? I mean, how do you legitimately defend how he acted, and the fact that they're investigating him as
right.
one of the I mean, it's just like it's too much. Like, if a Republican actually is like, no, this isn't enough. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so egregious to me. I don't want to hear anything else that person has to say. It's just so bad.
And I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there's plenty
Oh,
of people
surely.
who are like,
I'm
"Oh
just
no, he
looking for
doesn't need
Mitch
to be
McConnell. I'm just
impeached." And
looking for it.
oh yeah,
Oh my God.
watch
Yeah.
him be the one guy who's like, "Yeah, let's get him out," or like just throw a
Dude,
huge
that
curveball.
would be the first time in history that I've been like, oh,
You would
okay.
applaud his
I'd be
decision.
like, all right. I mean, good for
All
him.
right, just turn over a new leaf here.
Yeah, I don't know
But
about
probably not.
that.
But I mean, are there really people who are like, well, I don't know if has anybody come out and is like, he did nothing wrong? Like,
As far as
probably.
I don't know. I don't know, but I mean, there's a lot of these idiots that you have to keep up with. But I think another thing that it brings up is a fault in our Constitution. The fact that these Republicans and Democrats, doesn't matter, either side, that these people have to decide to impeach a president who has so much public power that if they impeach him, what do you think is going to happen to their ratings when they go up for reelection, let's say in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years or whatever it ends up being for that individual? Like, if
Yeah.
those people are really that bitter and that vocal, they will make sure that
Remember that.
yeah, they're going to remember it. And they're, one, your life is going to be in danger potentially, but also, secondly, also you might not get reelected, which, if that's what you've been doing for the last 20 years, that's like the worst thing in the world. So I mean, to me, it seems like we should have a different system for specifically for impeaching a president. Have an independent body that can't get reelected or doesn't go through this reelection process. Because if they do, then they also have to be selfishly thinking about, well, what's going to happen to me if I push back against this guy that's wildly popular with this,
Yeah.
incredibly vocal group of people that's not that much of a minority.
Hmm.
I mean, believe it or
Yeah.
not, there is a researcher. I'm not going to name her name, but there's a researcher at my school that is a avid Trump supporter, and I'm just like, how can you? That doesn't make any sense to me. How can you be in science and support Trump? But I don't know. So my point being, like, they're all over. It's not like this
Yeah. It's not the
hillbilly,
stereotypical.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, yeah, I think there's definitely a problem with, if you're a senator or a representative, not having a term limit. I mean, Mitch McConnell, he's been in there forever. Joe Biden was in there forever as a senator. Um, Basically, it's like, yeah, you just can sit there forever and like be set in your way and not kind of be changing with the times. So I just don't get the no term limit to those positions either.
Yeah,
But I think a lot of people were, maybe people who were not necessarily supporting Trump. I've seen a lot of people who are sort of defending him or defending uh, Twitter's banning of him or like coming out against that,
mm,
despite whether or not they believe, what he said or what he's done and stuff. And I'm just like, I mean, I get it, like on a freedom of speech thing, but I think we've talked about it before. I mean, Twitter's a private company.
exactly. Yep.
It's like they have guidelines that, yeah, I mean, sometimes it seems one-sided and biased, and I mean, sometimes they have to change their rules and all these different things because they're an evolving company. But at the same time, when you violate any terms and conditions of a product or company that you use, you can be removed based on that violation. It's just written in there clear as day.
Yeah.
Um, so he clearly has done that, not just this time, but throughout the years on Twitter. Like I said, he could have been banned years ago,
Sure.
and would have prevented a lot of probably damage and mayhem, and misinformation. But yeah, I mean, I'm usually like diehard, like, freedom of speech person, like even if I hate what you said. But yeah, I mean, I just can't see an argument where you can defend it anymore and be mad at Twitter, for banning him.
Yeah. And to your point, I think it's a non-issue. I'm totally for freedom of speech. I'm a huge proponent of it, but I also understand that is limited to the government. What the government can do against you in terms of what you say. But like you said, even if it's a public company, like their shareholders and stuff like that, the company is beholden to the shareholders, not to the government. So
Hmm.
they can do whatever they want to do. That's the company. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't fall under that amendment. They don't follow under that law. So freedom of speech is a complete non-issue in this situation. If the government owned Twitter, then that would be a completely different story. Then you would have an argument for they shouldn't have banned him and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
that's just like you said. It's the consequences of the terms and agreements that you end up following when you join Twitter. And I mean, he's been, of course, warned and suspended and all this stuff multiple times before. So it's not exactly a huge shock. I mean, he got banned from Twitter. He got suspended from Facebook. He was suspended from PayPal, Shopify, like all kinds of different applications, all just banned them. And that app Parler that has kind of become gained a lot of notoriety because it's really big among right-wing individuals. That's been banned on the Google App Store, the Apple app, or I think Apple as well, or maybe they're getting close to doing it. Amazon has broken their ties with it, which is a huge issue for them. So, I mean, it's just like they're being shut down left and right. And I believe it's the FBI. Oh, no, yeah, that was it. The Parler had deleted like a bunch of different pieces of incriminating information in terms of this information was stuff that people had written about, like, oh, they want to kill Nancy Pelosi, or like actual threats against like particular legislators. And what had happened is there's a researcher apparently that's doing research on this stuff. So this person had taken snapshots of like all these different things. So it didn't matter that it was now deleted off Parler. This researcher had already like been in the middle of their study and had taken all these images so that so the FBI was able to look at all that stuff as well. So it's kind of unfortunate for those people, but kind of in a good way for the rest of society. It's just, I mean, just overall, things are just blowing up over the last several days. It's really insane. And
what a start to the new year.
Seriously, yeah. What a start to the new year for sure.
Insane.
Yeah, it's really stunning.
Yeah, it's just tough when you look at that whole situation. I mean, from when Twitter started to where it is now, it's like, the CEO he probably would say, like, I never dreamed it would be something like it is, where it's like billions of people look at and get information from, and like, what does this mean? Do we have to have a certain responsibility for what other people say, and like, what should our rules be? And
yeah,
we don't want to seem like we're banning one particular group of people or political affiliation, because that would make it look like they're trying to control the political narrative or whatever narrative it is.
yeah.
So, I mean, I definitely get people like being upset and being mad, but it's a near impossible task as Twitter. I mean, it's just so many accounts. I mean, it's like, yeah, you're going to get mad at somebody being banned, and then, whoa, what about this person who said this? And it's like, there's billions of people on Twitter. It's just like, it's just tough, I think.
Yeah, it is.
So we'll see how that evolves.
Yeah, and how this whole situation evolves over time, over the next, let's say, 9 days? Inauguration is what, the 20th?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, so over the next 9 days, how insane
feel like
it's going to get.
Be the wildest 9 days ever.
It could very well be. Yeah. A lot of delusional people out there. I mean, even one of the delegates of West Virginia was in the riot.
Oh God, that doesn't shock me that much. But
I mean, no, not from West Virginia. They're like,
but it's
no.
still like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, seriously, just
Get
stunning.
it together.
I know.
I just wish people could like think on their own, just think for themselves.
Yeah.
Try to weigh the evidence and have a conversation and get educated and actually try to learn more about what you're angry about and what you're interested in.
Yeah.
Instead of just blindly following some jackass on Twitter.
Yeah. Wake up, sheeple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, on another note, you had texted me about this Joe Rogan podcast where Dr. Mark Gordon was talking about a bunch of different things. I'd actually like your first impression on like what'd you think of that particular podcast?
I I was pretty engaged with it for like at least a good like hour and 15 minutes. Um, because he was just, well, I think I listened to pretty much all of it. I don't know how long the whole thing was, but I found it pretty interesting whenever he has people like this on who are talking about, longevity, biohacking, nutrients, supplements, anything that can improve your immune system that you can do in a safe and healthy way and prolong your life with new techniques and like new information, new technology coming out about brain function. And that's basically what he was. I think that's where his biggest field. I guess is he a neurologist?
Honestly, I tried to look up his credentials. I couldn't find them. So there's, I mean, but then again, like Mark Gordon isn't exactly
Pretty common
yeah,
name.
it is an incredibly common name. So I'm gonna,
But and then the guy that he was with was a veteran who had experienced like severe PTSD from head trauma experienced during war, and so they talked a lot about helping veterans that were exposed to any sort of physical head trauma and the regiment that they put them on and how effective that was in getting them back to feeling like a normal person again. Um, so I thought that part was pretty cool too. But I texted you about it because I was like, I mean, this sounds great, all this information, but I just wouldn't know. I wouldn't know myself, and just some of the things sounded maybe a little too easy or too good to be true.
yeah, they usually are. Um, okay, so yeah, I looked up a little bit. I mean, I gotta admit, his website looks like absolute trash. Looks like something from the '90s. It's
Windows
really bad.
98.
It's really bad. Uh,
Oh
Millennium
God.
Neuroregenerative
He's got
Centers.
supplements, right, that he's selling?
Yeah, yeah, he does. Well, with that guy that was talking about it, the
The veteran
special
guy.
forces
Yeah.
dude. Yeah, he's a neuroendocrinologist. I still don't actually know what his credentials are, um, because he's an MD as far as I know. But the problem is, like, I mean, I have all kinds of issues with MDs, especially when they're talking science. But assuming that this dude has some level of background, I'll have to look this up. It's always kind of fishy for me I look when I look up these people. Oh, MD is an endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism specialist. Again, doesn't tell you the actual degree though. That's the thing. And the same is true if there's another guy named Dr. Fung that he is a nephrologist, meaning that he has his degree, his speciality with his medical degree is in kidneys, and yet he advises people on diabetes and diabetes can affect the kidneys, but diabetes and fasting and autophagy and all these different things that he's not an expert in, but he
Mm-hmm.
like people just they just ignore it. Like they're like, okay, nephrologist, like that's who I want to go to for some of this advice. So that's why I'm always a little skeptical of like Dr. Mark Gordon. But
Right.
anyway, assuming that he's fine. When I listened to it, I definitely got a hint of a vibe of scam artist from him. I don't know if that's true or not, but especially when the special forces guy started talking, the first time he actually extensively started
Mm-hmm.
talking, the first thing he said was, uh, "So I want to take a moment and just kind of take this in first." And
Oh
then he
yeah,
just
I
sat
know.
there,
I know.
And I mean, to me, it reeks of like spiritual mumbo jumbo of just like, I just want you to know how sincere I am about this,
Yeah,
and I'm
because
about
guess
to
what?
help a lot of
Yeah, it's
people.
going to help millions of
Yeah,
people.
exactly. Like I don't know. I'm not a fan of people like that typically. I'm
Yeah.
sure there are exceptions, but that didn't strike me as all that genuine. But maybe I don't know. Maybe he just had a really traumatic time, and this was really impactful for him, or whatever. But whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, they were talking about neuroinflammation, right? So they were talking about this
Hmm.
particular compound that you had texted me about called fractalkine. And fractalkine is, ended up looking up a few different research papers on it, more reviews. And fractalkine is just this protein that's found in our neurons. So our brain is made up of a series of different cells. We've got glial cells, like astrocytes. We have neurons themselves, which are what most people are familiar with. And there's also microglia, which are immune cells that are found specifically in our brain. And what fractalkine does is it's expressed in neurons. So the neurons actually generate fractalkine, and it's found all over on the actual membrane of the neuron. So the membrane of the neuron has a bunch of fractalkine that's kind of stuck to it. And then what the neuron does is it uses what are called proteases that end up cleaving or cutting the fractalkine into two pieces. And that soluble version of fractalkine ends up leaving the neuron, and it interacts with the microglia. The microglia are those immune cells, and it actually suppresses the microglia. So it tells them to essentially be quiet, to not be overactive. So if you have less fractalkine, to Mark Gordon's point, he was talking about how people with PTSD and traumatic brain injury, they have a disappearance of fractalkine, and that ends up leading to poor clinical outcomes. So that makes sense because then you have less of this soluble fractalkine, which is inhibiting the microglia. Because if the microglia aren't inhibited, then they become activated and they start kind of they're immune cells, so they are part of that inflammatory process. So you're increasing inflammation as a whole. That's a pretty simplistic understanding of it, but let's just roll with it. So, but unfortunately, like fractalkine isn't like the end all be all of everything. They've actually found in other studies. So the research is pretty mixed. In certain other studies, they've shown that with TBI, traumatic brain injury, when they induce that on animals, so they actually physically do damage to an animal's brain, and then they injected fractalkine, they showed an increase in damage to the brain from fractalkine. And then what they did is they reversed that effect by adding an antibody that binds and sequesters all of the fractalkine. And what they found is that led to better brain health outcomes. So in that situation, that's a direct implication that fractalkine is a negative against brain injury. So the research is mixed, essentially. Most of the research points to yes, it is beneficial, but there is some research that shows that's not beneficial, or it's actually detrimental. So, with the problems that I have with MDs in general is that, one, they're never taught how to read research. That's one thing that PhDs do learn how to do, just like a PhD doesn't learn how to do bedside manner, and doesn't learn how to do like an incubation area. Intubate, a person's lungs or whatever it might be, or to run an IV. I mean, we do some of that stuff, but it's usually not on humans. So, like that stuff is what an MD does if you're like in a emergency situation, but they never actually go through any formal training on how to read research papers. And that's unfortunately, what I think is probably the case with Dr. Mark Gordon is that he's just kind of reading, some
One-sided.
reviews. Yeah. And he's just like, he doesn't know how to interpret the research, which happens quite a bit. Unlike what you see with like Dr. Rhonda Patrick, which I don't know if you've seen some of her podcasts, but
Yeah.
she typically goes into a lot more nitty gritty and can actually explain things a lot more. And
Yeah.
she's also not afraid of saying, I don't know. There's one
Right.
point, and this is actually where my alarm bells went off, is Joe asked Dr. Mark Gordon at one point, well, why is there a difference between this particular population of people that see a benefit from this particular, let's say, fractalkine? I don't know if it was exactly that, but it was some sort of compound that Dr. Mark Gordon had mentioned. Why is it that some people see a benefit and then why other people don't see a benefit from whatever compound it was? And Dr. Mark Gordon replies with the classic, and I always love it when people say this, it means that they don't know the answer, but they're trying to save face. He said, genetics. That's it, just genetics. And when I hear that, it usually tells me they have no fucking clue, and they're just too embarrassed to say, I don't know. And that's what you need to be comfortable saying. Yeah, exactly. We don't have enough research. I haven't looked at the research. Like any of those answers is perfectly acceptable. You don't have to know everything. You can speculate and say, well, I would speculate that it's maybe because of this, but I would need to do further research or read more research to actually come to a definitive conclusion. But he just says genetics. That's it. And that's all he said, just genetics.
You're like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, Joe didn't press him on that. But yeah, it's so fractalkine's interesting, and some of the things that Dr. Mark Gordon mentions are interesting, but also like his story where he was invited over to England, and the English professors and doctors and PhDs and all that, yeah, they all sneered him. I don't care what anybody says. While yes, PhDs can definitely be dogmatic and that can be an issue, MDs can be the same way, et cetera, like if you kind of fall into this kind of overall understanding, like if you're part of the FDA or the NIH or in this situation, the British version of those institutions, you might have a little bit of a dogma that's related to that, but I just can't imagine that every single person, let's say 50 people were there to listen to him talk, that all of them were just like, "Oh, you think you know? You're like we don't believe you," or condemned him exactly, right? I just I've just never run across any researchers that are that cutthroat about that stuff or set in their ways. Exactly. Like if he had brought forward compelling evidence, I'm pretty sure people would have been like, oh, that's really interesting. And unfortunately, what I wish a real PhD that like maybe one of the people that went to his talk would have been there in that podcast to kind of defend themselves is that they end up kind of chalking it up. All three of them, Joe, this special forces guy, and Mark Gordon, all end up chalking it up to, well, it's not in their best interest in terms of money, the money that they'll make on this situation. And there's a lot of controls for the how money is actually dispersed across different institutions. It's not like these PhDs are suddenly thinking, well, I'm suddenly not going to make any money because this guy has this idea. Like, trust me, so many people have had brilliant ideas and there's plenty of money to go around. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars. It's just like it's kind of a dim-witted kind of excuse of just like, oh, follow the money, that kind of conspiracy.
They can't explain, why they maybe, dismiss their ideas. Just like, well, it must be this.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
Scared.
Yeah, exactly. So ultimately, I haven't made up my mind about this guy. Fractalkine seems interesting. But ultimately, I also have my serious doubts or just some general doubts about his overall claims. I think he oversimplifies certain things. And I also find it hard to believe that a room full of scientists all just dismissed him for no reason at all, just other than money. Like, usually scientists read this stuff, they read the data, and they're like, well, maybe you need to like control for this variable, or have you considered this other avenue of thought and whatnot. Like it's not like you present research and then people are like, oh, you're a god, and they just start laying down. I mean, you have to actually continue the dialogue and because people at these conferences are like, well, I'm an expert in this area and you mentioned this, so let me, talk to you a little bit more about it, and, let's try and come to some sort of agreement on what might be happening. So there's so much stuff that like I could easily talk about, but the point being, like, I I'm always cautious with these particular individuals, and everybody has
Especially
their
when you
faults.
can't find like credible information about their background, or if their website looks like
That
Windows 98,
Yep.
it was made on a Windows 98 computer.
Yes.
It hasn't
Did
been
you
updated
see it?
since.
Did you look at it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's so bad. It's
It's
serious.
terrible.
It's all blue, and it has a picture that he shot on like a Nikon from 1988. You know, it's just like the TBI training program, and like, yeah, I mean, like you said, he's got these supplements that he also sells. And then he also has a certification examination where you have to like sign up, and then I'm assuming you have to pay a certain amount, and then you end up going through his course. Yeah. Congratulations, Mark L. Gordon, MD, for having completed the required prerequisites. And prerequisites is misspelled. This is on the
No.
plaque. This is on the plaque.
Oh no.
Prerequisites is misspelled. To be invited to join the Millennium WAF TBI network. TBI is traumatic brain injury. I mean, you know, it's stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, if you can't
I,
even go be bothered to proofread your own website, I mean,
it
yeah, I
just
don't
doesn't
know.
bode well. It really doesn't. But in the
But
meantime, you have like Sam Harris, or you have
right.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick, or
What about Peter Attia? What do you feel about him?
so I've heard good things. I actually have not done any like investigation to him.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but I've heard good things. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe,
I,
who knows?
yeah, his podcast is sometimes I'll listen to it, but yeah, I think you should definitely give it a listen at least.
Okay,
He
yeah,
talks about a wide array of things, and I think he's been on Joe Rogan at least once or twice, and
okay,
um, yeah, it would be worth a shot. But yeah, he's another guy that came to mind. Not that he reminded me of this guy, but he does talk a lot about um, like inflammation and longevity and fasting, and he's really big on like maybe not necessarily. He talks about keto a lot, but he's had like that Dom D'Agostino guy on often, and he talks with him about that. But
and
the
he's been
biggest thing I've
debunked a
noticed,
lot of times too.
yeah,
Dom has.
the biggest thing I noticed from Peter Attia is that Dr. Peter Attia is that he's like huge on fasting. Like
Yeah,
he'll do like, you know, a 3 or 4 day fast once a month or something, like just super extreme.
yeah. There's good
And
evidence for that.
yeah, but yeah, he seems like a pretty credible guy, but a lot of the stuff I don't quite understand. But another thing that in this podcast that I don't know if you had time to look up or not, or if you know anything about it already, but he mentioned finasteride.
No, I
Um,
didn't look into that. No.
but yeah, I mean, I was just curious what like because there's so many, the hymns and the keeps and the Roman. You've seen all these advertisements, especially
Yeah.
on podcasts, where you take finasteride and they give you like a shampoo or they give you like a pill for whatever. And he mentions in this podcast with Joe, like there's like a potential, it can mess up your testosterone production or block some other hormone that would affect your testosterone levels in some way that might be
Mm.
harmful going forward. I don't even know if there's enough long-term research, but I guess it's the same thing as Propecia. Um, but I don't know. I was just curious, and then they just kind of went on to another thing, and I was like, huh. I'd like to know a little bit more about that because it is such a huge popular thing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Finasteride. I don't know anything about it. I do know the mechanism by which uh, specifically men, but this can happen to women as well, end up losing hair androgenic alopecia, which is based off of actually testosterone, and a particular enzyme called 5A reductase, which is found around the hair follicles. So the 5A reductase actually converts testosterone. I believe it's testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. And dihydrotestosterone is far more potent actually than testosterone is. So when dihydrotestosterone enters the hair cells, it can lead to gene regulation changes that end up leading to a diminution of the actual hair follicle and the hair strand itself. So over time, as time moves on, it kind of speeds up the process of the balding. But I don't know if finasteride works on that particular enzyme or whatever it does. So I'd be really interested to look into that. So maybe next podcast I'll have had some time to look into that a little bit.
Yeah, because it just would seem that so many millions of people are on it, and I just wonder what, if any, are any negative short or long term impacts of that.
Yeah, no, that'd be
Should
really
be worried
interesting.
about.
Yeah,
Like, does the risk outweigh the potential benefit?
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And especially like you said, if so many people are using it, it'd be incredibly beneficial to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will. With that, be interested. I'm definitely interested in your take on this sports weekend.
Hashtag sad Ben.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Yeah,
wild.
looks like it's over for Ben.
You think so? He's going to retire?
I don't know. I mean, he didn't look like. I mean, I guess he threw like three interceptions, but he didn't look terrible. Like, I mean, he probably had about 800 yards passing.
Yeah, 501 on 60 something yards or 60 passing yards, 64 or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, you
nuts.
just can't win like that. But he, I mean, he can still do that, but I don't know. He's just like a statue
He is.
in the
Yeah,
pocket. And that's the same with Philip Rivers. I mean,
yeah.
they both did well, but they bring you zero mobility.
So zero.
Like,
Yeah,
incredibly smart, can read a defense like no other.
yeah,
Um, can audible really well and make really good decisions, but it's just like age is real, and you just, the injuries pile up, especially Big Ben. I mean, that dude has gone through so many injuries,
yeah,
um, that I just feel like it would be for them the wise choice to maybe step away, or maybe just try to do a backup role. I don't know. I mean, they both probably have earned another starting season,
yeah,
um, but you probably won't be able to win the Super Bowl with them.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I do think they can definitely be starters just because they did so well. The Colts, got in the playoffs, and
Yeah,
the
it's a
Steelers went on
close
an
game with the
11-0
Bills too.
run. Yeah. So clearly there's what's the alternative, right? Like, who
Yeah,
are they going to go to then? So they
yeah.
don't have any other options. So I think that's not so bad. The Steelers need a running game though.
Oh
They
my
they
God.
were they were pitiful in the run game. I think was it Connor got like 37 yards or something like that in total. Just really really bad. Speaking of running game, Derrick Henry struggled a lot
Yeah.
against the Ravens. That was. I stand by this. I just don't think Lamar Jackson is ever going to be an elite quarterback unless he learns how to pass or he relies
Yeah.
more on it. That's ultimately
Yeah,
it.
and if he doesn't, you know, they won because of him, but he had like the most insane run again. It's like
Yeah,
another crazy, insane run, and it's like you almost have to have at least one or two of those from him every game for them to win, and that's not
totally.
like a given.
No.
Like he can do it, but how long can you do that
Yeah, yeah,
before,
exactly.
like we talked about, and then yeah, I mean, you definitely have to evolve to be, a full, complete game. I mean, it was a great game by him, but he had more yards rushing, I feel like, than he did passing.
I think he did, or at least
It was
very
like very
close.
close,
Very
yeah,
close, yeah.
which is insane as well. But yeah, I know they play the Bills, so
I
who
think
knows? I
they
mean,
could beat the Bills. I mean, what do you think?
yeah,
Do you think who
I
do you
think they
think's going to
could.
win that?
Well, the Bills are 2.5 point favorites in that game. Um, I don't know. I think the Ravens are going to win by 3 points.
3 points. Wow. Okay. Uh, I'm gonna. Oh yeah. Okay. I'll go Ravens. I mean, I'm really on the fence on that one.
Yeah,
I just
it could go either way.
yeah, I love watching Lamar Jackson play, but it's just so irritating because he's never. I just don't think he can win. I don't think he can win if he doesn't work on his passing, and it's frustrating that season after season he doesn't seem to be like working on his passing. He just
Hmm.
says like, "Well, good enough. We got to the playoffs." And they finally beat the Titans, which was great. He got his first playoff win, which is great, but I just didn't think it was impressive.
Hmm.
So, I mean, his run was explosive, fantastic, but like once he gets older, he's not going to be able to rely on that. So his drop, like he's going to be way up here as a very good
Hmm.
quarterback, but not a great quarterback. And then he's just going to have a precipitous drop when he can't do what he normally does because he can't rely on his run game. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely got to transition into more of a passer eventually, but we'll see if he can do it.
yeah.
Um, and then I don't know. I thought that the Seahawks and Rams game was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it was. I didn't expect the Rams to win, to be honest.
No, I didn't either. But especially when the backup quarterback got hurt, like immediately,
Yeah,
like his neck was just destroyed.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, like he went down. Went down to slide. He was clearly going down, and then a guy on the Seahawks like hit him directly on top of his helmet, and his head like smashed in. Yeah, yeah, but he hit him with his shoulder pad, and they're like, it's not a foul because he didn't lead with his head. It was just like, dude, that should probably be a foul. Like, that's a flag, man. Like, they totally got that one wrong, in my opinion. But
Uh,
yeah, the Seahawks, and then Bobby Wagner got hurt on the Seahawks, who's their like captain
yeah.
linebacker. Looks like he tore his ACL from what
Oh
I
man.
saw, but I don't know. The Seahawks they just so boring. Just such a boring team. And
You
like
think
I
so?
feel like yeah, I just feel like Pete Carroll like yeah, like you can win in your division, but you burn out every time now in the
I agree.
playoffs.
Yeah,
I think it's just time for new blood in there.
yeah, yeah. I think so too. You're right. They do make it to the playoffs pretty consistently, and then maybe they win one game and then they're out, or
Yeah.
they're out immediately.
Yeah.
Um,
They're never the favorite.
no. So I guess I
But
wasn't
I
too
do
shocked.
remember at the beginning of the season I picked the Rams to win the Super Bowl. I just do not believe they're going to win the Super Bowl now, but I did say that at the beginning, and they had a
Yeah,
much better squad at the beginning.
yeah,
Jared Goff was actually healthy. He didn't have
yeah.
a broken thumb. But yeah, if Aaron Donald can be healthy next week against the Packers, I mean, hopefully he'll be able to give Rodgers a little bit of trouble, although I don't see it being too much that they will win. But hopefully it's an interesting game.
Yeah, I hope so too. Uh, the Packers come up really disappointing in kind of the most the craziest ways sometimes. So it wouldn't at all
And
shock me if they
they're
somehow.
favored by 7, the
Yeah,
Packers.
right. Yeah. So it wouldn't shock me at all if they lost. But I mean, I would still tend towards the Packers winning, but who knows?
Yeah.
The really intriguing game for me is Kansas City and Cleveland. I texted
Mhm.
you, and I wasn't actually kidding about this. I genuinely think, and I'm sure I'll eat my words next weekend, next podcast. Tune in, folks.
Yeah.
But Cleveland Browns versus Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Cleveland Browns will upset the Kansas City Chiefs
You heard it
because,
here.
yeah, you heard it here. Not because Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback or anything like that, but because the Kansas City Chiefs are known, or any Andy Reid team is known to be soft. They're not as physical, and the Browns are, as we saw, incredibly physical. So that plus the fact that they have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, that combination, I think they can control
Yeah.
the clock, and I think that they can really put Kansas City, like kind of temper Kansas City's
Yeah.
offense. I
You want to
don't
keep them off the field.
exactly. I don't think that Cleveland's defense is very good. When I was watching them against the Steelers, I felt
Mm.
like they were really porous. So that's the only thing that I'm like really scared about. Because if Kansas City pulls out by like 21, I think that then it's pretty much game over. But if Cleveland can get started early with the run game, I really think that they have a shot at a pretty good shot at winning against Kansas City because I really think that their front line can really bully the Kansas City offense and defense. So I'll be curious how that turns out. But that's my hot take. I'm going
All right.
Browns
I like it.
against Kansas City.
I
What are
like it.
what are you going with?
Well, my game that I'm watching, uh, I'll watch them all, but my highlight game is going to be Bucks Saints.
Oh, that's gonna be so good, so good.
It'll be their third matchup of the year because they're in the same division, and the Saints have beaten them twice already. But I don't know. I just feel like the Bucks are maybe clicking a little bit more now than they were earlier in the year.
Definitely.
And the Saints really didn't look super convincing against the Bears.
No.
Um, and Drew Brees, he's kind of like, you know, Big Ben and Philip Rivers, where he's just, and he's shorter than those guys. I mean, he's the all time passing yardage leader in the NFL, so it doesn't matter, obviously, what his height is, but um, I don't know, just not very mobile. And yeah, I just feel like if that guy on the Bears had made that catch on that trick play that they ran, like a
Yeah.
wide open right through his hands in the
Yeah.
end
Yeah.
zone, and it was
Yeah.
just like, what? Like I feel like it could have been a much closer game for the Saints.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I'm going to pick the Bucks to upset the Saints because they're favored by 3. Um, So yeah, I'm gonna do the Bucks. Not quite as a shocking underdog pick as the Browns, but the Browns, the Chiefs are favored to win by 10 actually.
If the Chiefs win, they're gonna win by a lot. That's what I think.
Yeah,
And if if they
lose.
lose, it'll be pretty. I think it'll be pretty close. It'll be a
Yeah,
relatively tight game. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah, probably. So who knows? But yeah, Bucks versus Saints. Um, I would love for the Bucks to win, just because it'd make a really great story. Uh, but I will go, and you're right. When I watched the Saints, I did not think that they were very impressive against not a great Bears team. But I will go Saints just because they've won the last 2 times. And well, honestly, I have no real reason. You're right. The Bucks have gotten better, no doubt. When they played the Saints the second time, they had just gotten AB, so he wasn't really in the rotation yet. So no matter what, they've gotten better, and the Saints, I think, have actually gotten worse. So
Yeah, I
why I'm
think so.
picking the Saints, I don't know, but I'm
Just a
just going to go
feeling.
Saints just so we can have a difference
Yeah,
on choice. But I'll be rooting for the Bucks.
yeah,
All
yeah. It's
right.
going to be interesting. That's for
Panthers.
sure.
Who are they playing?
Panther. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, they're playing East Millbrook High.
Okay, I'm gonna pick East Millbrook High. The
It's a good
Butterflies
pick. I like that pick. Yeah, that's a solid pick.
-5 on the
The safe.
spread.
That's the safe pick. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any other games?
That's it. It's 4 games now.
Yeah. Okay.
4 games. I mean, yeah, the Bills and the Browns, they hadn't won a playoff game since like the mid 90s until yesterday or
Yeah.
whenever it was.
Well, the beginning of that
Um,
game was insane for the Browns. I mean, the first
yeah,
snap and
like by the time I turned it on, it was 21 to nothing, and it was
really,
just like I feel like, and it was still the first quarter. They scored 28 in the first quarter, and then
yeah.
they only win by like 11. But
I
I
know
think
that
they
was
probably,
scary.
yeah, but also the Steelers they just scored, then they made a stop, got the ball back. It was 4th and 1, like on the 50, and they punted. I'm like, that lost you the game right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That lost you the game right there because then the Browns scored, and then it was like you just don't have enough. Even though the Steelers were coming back, it was like you don't have enough time to score
I
this much
agree.
points.
Yeah, I agree.
But if they would have gone for it on 4th and 1, like Big Ben just has to fall over, and he gets it.
Yeah.
Seriously, like
Yeah.
that's all you had to do. Like it's 4th and 1, and you're down by like a crazy amount, but you have momentum. Why would you punt it there? That seemed like, I don't know. That was like the fix is in moment for me.
Yeah, it's also psychological too. Like you have to put everything out for the game at that point because you went down 28-0. You need to take every risk that you can
I
to
know you
potentially
have to.
get back into the game.
Yeah,
Yeah, that did make
fake punt, onside kick,
whatever it
go for
takes.
it every 4th down. Like why
That's what
not?
I would do. Yeah, I
They
mean,
did it to score that touchdown. They went for it on 4th down, like 4th and goal, and they got it.
yeah,
And then they turn around and don't go for it on 4th and 1. It's just very weird.
yeah, yeah. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, the Steelers are out.
Yep.
They went from 11-0 to kind of having a
Crash and burn.
yeah, crash and burn. Just didn't do so hot at the end there.
Yep. Well, I can't say I'm sad to see him go. That's one of the teams that I just don't like. Just not a fan of the Steelers. Never have been.
Okay, fair enough. Why the animosity?
um, I don't know. Just because it's just an annoying fan base. It's
Mm,
it's just, and they're literally everywhere. Like they're Steeler fans in every corner of the world. It
yeah,
seems like,
yeah, there
and
are.
it's like this is a Steelers bar, and you're like, I mean, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, or I'm in Raleigh. Like, what's going on?
Yeah,
And
right.
like, I have nothing against the fans themselves, but it's too much. You've been too successful. You're everywhere. I'm sick of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right. They aren't they like the most winning franchise or something like that? Pretty close to it.
Yeah, they might be. Yeah, them and the Patriots and 49ers, I think.
Yeah, the Packers are pretty high up there too.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's my sports corner. I don't know if you had any soccer news before we finish this episode out.
Soccer news. A lot of players are testing positive for COVID, and
Hmm.
there's a debate going on as to whether or not people want to finish the season. or
It's
call it
soccer.
quits.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're so spread out. Like, I don't know. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I'm totally against that kind of BS talk, but I just wonder because it does seem like it is a lot stricter in England
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. Like you can't take the Premier League away, then there would definitely be some riots. And I'll be in the riots.
Yeah. I mean, you lock people
um,
in their houses, and then on top of that, you take away their
no,
Premier League.
yeah,
The
because especially like as soon as like the Super Bowl ends, that's it. Well, I mean, there's NBA still going on and college basketball, but like Premier League for me is number one, and that would just be a disaster.
you would turn to the drugs
Yeah, it's the only reason I have
for
YouTube
living.
TV. Yeah, well,
Okay.
that too, but yeah, to watch sports in this dire time, it's an essential service.
Yeah.
Don't forget it.
Does YouTube TV? This is actually interesting because I've been considering getting it for like a month.
Oh,
Um, do they have the NFL games?
hmm
That's the only
they have
reason why I was
every
going to get
single
them.
one of them.
Okay, cool. Okay,
Yeah, they got Fox and CBS, and that's where they showed all of them
okay.
throughout the day. And yeah, it's great. I mean, I haven't had one issue. I've had it for a couple weeks now. I haven't had one issue with it.
Okay, cool. Great.
So
Well, then maybe I mean, I'm just getting it for the NFL, and I'm going to cancel. But yeah,
yeah, you
sounds
can do
good.
like a free trial.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be ideal.
Yep, 20-minute free trial.
20-minute free trial. Oh yeah, hopefully not. Well, that's all I got to talk about this week. You got anything else on your mind?
I just want to talk about just very quickly, the migration habits of caribou in Alberta, Canada. It's that time of year.
Can we save it for next week? We can open the
Yeah,
podcast up with that.
yeah. Let's save it. It needs to be a whole podcast, so
Okay.
we'll save that.
Yeah, right. Sounds good. Well, you heard it here, folks. Tune in next week. We'll be opening up with the migration habits of caribou in
Yes,
Alberta, Canada.
and that's
By
the animal corner.
the Animal Corner. Yeah. Okay. Catch you next week, folks.
Goodbye.